Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of a run through. Today we're going to be looking at Dreamscaper. I was about to say prologue, but this is actually the game. It's now out in early access on Steam, and I believe if you had the version before, the prologue version, it was like $4.99 or something like that. So they gave you this for $14.99 instead of $20. I believe the discount is only for the first week. So from what I was reading, I could be wrong on that, but so what you'll see here is you're sort of starting a run. So basically the idea is that you are having what I think to be nightmares. And so you're getting sort of sucked into your dreams. Or you're like lucid dreaming, more or less. So you're sort of going through this dreamscape and sort of, defeating creatures and stuff like that. It is a roguelike game with a little bit of a narrative focus in between. So where we started there was in your room. And you go in there between each stage and then in between before each run. So effectively what you're doing is you're kind of going into these dungeons, getting resources, crafting gifts that you then go around the townspeople to chit-chat with them and sort of build up your relationship with them and then give them gifts and stuff, which I think is mostly how the story unfolds through dialogue with them. And then you'll give them gifts to sort of unlock new potential drops in the run itself. And that's all telegraphed pretty well. I'll say that some characters like more gifts better, or certain gifts better than others. But generally speaking, anyone will take any gift from what I can tell. And it'll all increase theirs like a set amount. I think there's like a star limit, unless of course they like it, and I think they get more. This is I don't know. I'm on the fence about this game so far because I played a lot of the prologue, and it seems like they could have just given this version to us then. I mean, obviously, if it wasn't ready and they didn't have the content, then clearly they can't do that. But it doesn't seem too much different because I think the only difference is they've added another boss and maybe a few enemy types. Like there's a few I didn't recognize in here, but generally speaking, it doesn't feel like too much different. There's another puzzle type which I didn't see before, and I haven't been to all the new biomes, so maybe those are like extravagantly different, but yeah, it just seems I don't know. That's not really the game, so that's a bit of an off topic, so we don't really need to get into all that. But so what is in the game so far is there's 6 procedural levels, there's 4 biomes, 3 bosses, 13 enemy classes, 44 variants of the enemies, 200 unique items, 63 item modifiers, 20 melee weapons, 12 ranged, 7 dodge types, 14 shield types, 23 abilities, and 93 keepsakes. Which that seems like a lot. I will say that most of that comes from progression of character relationships, which is what you do in the in-between world that I was talking about at the beginning. So a lot of that stuff is not really, it's really just done through, talking with each character, which it can all be accomplished by giving gifts in between each run. So whether you don't have to continue the run the whole time, you'll stop in between. And I think you have about 2 hours of time where going to each location is like 15 minutes, then talking to each person is 30 minutes, and then giving a gift I don't think takes any time. And then you return to your apartment, then fall back asleep and go to your next run, which I think that setup is pretty interesting. I think that dynamic is neat, and I think if the story ends up being worthwhile, then that's a really cool way to handle all that stuff. That being said, I think the combat still needs a bit of tweaking, and it could be a case where I'm just not super good at it, but the timing of everything is very sensitive. Like it needs like, especially on the hammer, I was finding it was very hard for me to get. There's a system where you'll glow whenever you've swung, so to like if you hit again on that timer, so sort of like Phantasy Star, how it used to the first Phantasy Star anyway. The second one I guess does it also, but it was more important in that first one, it seemed like. But so it'd be like you'll swing and then you'll glow and then swing again on that glow, but it's like if you don't hit it at that exact second, you miss it. I think I can't tell exactly what it does, but it seems like it does more damage, or in some cases some of the weapons do like a variant of the attack that you would do normally. And so as far as attack goes, you have a regular attack, and then there's an alternate attack, so they don't call it like weak and heavy. The alternate on weapons is different. On the sword, it's, as you can see here, it's like it's like a flat swipe. On the hammer is more like an uppercut, which would do a stun, which I found that to be super useful. The sword I didn't quite find as helpful. Or realistically, I didn't get to test it because what I did was I switched to these weapons here, which is like these wolf claws, which these were really effective, and I found the timing on these to be quite a bit better or more tuned towards whatever my natural reflex seemed to be. I'm not totally sure why, but they seem to work out a little bit better. So that being said, this is like the item shop, and you kind of turn in your spirits for different items, stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty standard. What you did see though is you can teleport any room you've been in already. And this is something that I don't remember being in the prologue, but if you've beaten the boss here, you can just move past it, and you'll get the health benefit that you would have gotten. You just don't get all the experience and stuff that you would have otherwise. So here's the in-between room what I was talking about. Basically, you come here, then you sort of see what you can craft. There is a toggle all available button, which is helpful because there's a lot of items in there. You sort of craft whatever, and as you can see, there's a different time limit for each place you go to. All the characters will be kind of hanging out randomly, so I don't think you know exactly where they're going to be. Some hang out at other places more often than others, but they're not always stationary. They kind of move around, so it's sort of you're not sure who you're going to get to. So that's kind of a rogue-ish element to the game too, because you don't really know who you're about to go, talk to, or who you can, because you can't go to every. You can go to every place, but you won't be able to talk to everybody. Generally speaking, just because of the way that the time mechanic works of talking to people. Now, you should be able to, if you just had gifts that you could give to everyone, you could definitely go and do that, it seems like. But yeah, as far as actually talking to everyone, it takes a set amount of time. Generally, it's two when you chat with them, and you go up a level, they'll have like some kind of more grandiose dialogue between each other that kind of fleshes out the story a bit more. And then you go on your next run, and since we technically speaking beat the last one, then this is a stage 2. And again, this is kind of just how it goes. I will say this is definitely not an easy game. Just by virtue, especially if there's more than one enemy at a time, they start to really pile up on you, and it becomes difficult to dodge, because there's also a parry. There's a ranged weapon that I don't use all that often, just because you only have like 10 shots, so it's kind of limited. I did find ammo fairly regularly, but it was one of those. It's that issue in games where you have a certain set amount of resources, so you never use them where you should be using them. I think maybe that's a case of what I'm doing here, but the parry, I will say, is super satisfying because it will deflect bullets back, which I think I do on here in a minute because this is like a challenge. I don't end up doing it, but just because I can't really deflect the slower ones, it seems like. I know I get it at some point, I'm sure. This is super riveting. There we go. So yeah, that was a deflect. You can block any attack, it seems like, except maybe some boss ones, and then that'll give them a stun, and then from that point you'll be able to do more damage, and so on and so forth. That stuff's relatively standard. You also do have a freeze time mechanic, which I probably should use more often as well. Same with your special abilities. There's a bunch of different ones of those that all play out a little differently, and they all recharge relatively fast. Some items will also increase that ability to recharge. But as these weapons too, it's a little weird because I guess I just got a really good roll on these fists, because most of these enemies would take generally I don't know, 9 to 12 hits or something before they would go down, which seemed pretty excessive considering the random nature of the weapons you get, because sometimes there's no option for another weapon other than the one you start with, and that one's really kind of weak. And I guess the idea would be more so to use abilities and stuff, which I need to do a little bit more of. But I don't remember when I played the prologue for them to be particularly strong. It's not like a immediate win button or anything. But again, they may have changed that more for this one. I just, by virtue of the way RNG happens, sometimes you don't always get that option in roguelike, so I think that's a bit of that there. I don't know that I have too much else to say, though, to be honest. I enjoy this game. I know they plan to update it, I think over the next 6 months, they said, until it's finally done, which I want to say, let me see if I can double check here really quick, but the prologue came out in not too long ago. Yeah, April of this year. So April 8th, it looks like. So April, May, June, July, August. So 5-ish months. Um, and then we get this release with another 6 months. So really, it seems like, I don't know when they exactly started it, obviously, but it seems like a little over a year, or a little maybe 2 years or so for the actual development, which is, I mean, pretty impressive for what's here. Like, again, I don't think it's a bad game by any means. It may not be my preferred roguelike. I do like it, but I also like the developers too, so it's one of those games I'll probably end up keeping just to support them. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I think the prologue is still free. Obviously, the $5 version of the early purchase thing is, I don't think, there anymore. But the prologue is free, and they updated it a couple times, and they updated it again today when this came out. So I imagine that prologue is as up to date as this game is mechanically. So if you do want to try it, it is available for free to do on Steam there. And I think it's definitely worth taking a look at, because it may be your cup of tea. It's not exactly mine yet, but I think it might get there. I'm also holding out a bit because I think Rogue Legacy 2 comes out next week, and that's another big one that I would like to see how that happens, or what they do with that game, just because I was a huge fan of that first one and kind of helped shape roguelikes a bit. So yeah, I don't know. I know that's not the best review in the world, but I think it's one that you can at least get your hands on, so then you have a better idea of what's happening here. But as always, guys, thanks again for watching. And if you have any suggestions or games you'd like me to play, feel free to leave it in the comments, and then you can subscribe, all that stuff. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.